in the practice of a meditation that we have been doing continuously, continuing from previous practices, we have to understand that if we haven't developed the previous stages, then it will be difficult to develop or understand further on from now on. Especially now, the section that we are working on is on the feeling, the Vedana. And Vedana is so important part of our life, and we all look for it, and we all in our life actually doing everything to gain pleasant feelings, nice feelings. Even like coming to the meditation, that's also we are expecting some calmness and some relaxation, some empty minds. And meanwhile, let's say in a worldly affairs, you go to work simply to gain some money so that you can have a pleasant life. So you can have a pleasant life, comfortable life. So you're always dealing with this pleasant feeling, and as a result, whenever we come across with the unpleasant feelings, then there more tends to create the resistance, resentments, and try to escape from it. Right? So whatever we are experiencing and now is actually we cannot avoid in our life that we are is actually based on what we experience, the feelings. So that's why it's called Vedana Sanya. Everything is based on the feelings. And that this feeling, again, that's why we escape from doing certain things to gain certain things. And whatever things that gives us a pleasant feelings or feel that I am having this or that and I feel happy or make me feel happy, then we tend to go and do it. And this is again under the impression of this hindrances. Right? And in the meantime, whenever things that gives us unpleasant sensations or unpleasant experiences, then we tend to avoid, we give up. So that's why we have a very extremists or extreme practices going on, going towards one practice or another, simply to satisfy our perceptions, our feelings, our perceptions, or experiencing as we want to experience. So sometimes as a result of that, we want to practice meditation simply to gain some form of a blissfulness, but also meantime we do not want to give up some attachments or a pleasant comfortable habits that we normally have in our day-to-day life. And that again actually leading us to understand that our life is shaped by these feelings. Our life is shaped by these feelings. And under that feeling, if we do not understand these feelings, what happens is that our consciousness often driven by those feelings. Driven by those feelings. So basically, feeling is controlling us to do things as it pleases. So sometimes in a short form it is known as we are a slave of our own feelings. How do we become slave of our own feelings? And that's simpler because this feeling becomes so dominant and we do not understand this feeling. And we attach to that. We proliferate it. And that's how it shapes. And actually that is the reason why we become very addicted to certain things. Whether that's addiction to the cigarettes, alcohol, nowadays social media or mobile phones, or even going to the pub or a dance, like that. And now we can see that whenever there is a parties, then there is always ways to make the time to be in that party time. And that's driven by this this feeling that we had experienced in the past. And as a result of that, we become a slave to it. And so that's why these feelings actually shaping our life, how we want it to be. And this shape, again, simpler because our experiences that we have experienced in the past, and that gives us a pleasant. And that's why it's a sanya, Vedana, right? And then this consciousness, this vijnana, or the one mind arises. Now, that's simply because of not knowing. So the word Buddha used, it's called unwise. Unwise person. A sutta word. Unwise person, or haven't come across with the noble ones and the noble teachings, then normally become a slave of whatever they experience. Whereas a person who has come across with the teachings or come across with the noble friends and have understood certain degrees, and then rather than letting this feeling to take control, what are we doing is that we are learning it. Sometimes known as killing this feeling. So if we can't kill it, then at least take a control of it. So there is a process. Kill. If you can't kill, control. So if you can control, then killing is basically abandoning. Now the term comes abandonment, sometimes also known as the deliverance. Deliverance is basically the level of the understanding that when these things arises, then simply knowing it and then drops there. So that is what I also mentioned a couple of times in the past, that seeing as just the seeing, hearing as just the hearing, like that. So that is the stage will come. And that state is basically having this sati or mindfulness so strong each moment when it arises, and we are able to recognize that. And that recognition actually refines this mind. So that's why the refining the way to refine the mind is basically understanding these feelings. Understanding these feelings. That's why in the practice of a meditation, when we attain a certain piti, so the joys or the rapture, this rapture can be obstacles for us because we attach to it. We attach to this rapture, joyness. And actually rapture itself troubles the mind. Whereas the sukha, which is very different, sukha is something that doesn't trembles the mind. It simply settles the mind, and the mind becomes very one-pointedness. And that one-pointedness, actually, there is no bodily formation, there is no verbal formation at all. There is just the quietness of the mind, which has actually come out from this concept of these feelings and the perceptions. There is pure understanding there. And that's pure, that the moment of this arising of this pure understanding, that actually the purified mind. So that's why in the practice of Anapanasati, what we are doing is, the moment when we understand this piti and the sukha, or the rapture and this happiness, actually we have experienced this mind. Yeah? Have you noticed that? So we have experienced this mind in a stage that how this mind conditioned to start or conditioned to arise. So that's why it is also known as Vedana, or the feeling is the conditioner to arise the mind. Huh? So here you see it now, how this connects. Right? So if we understand this feeling, this piti and a sukha, and then when we fully understood it as it is, basically what is happening is that there is no perception coming in. But we have fully understood this feeling. And as a result of it, that mind simply settles. And that is actually known as the concentration. Yeah, in a higher stage. It's a higher concentration there. So it's called the samadhi. Right? This samadhi is different than the samatha, remember. Okay? Although seems like, sounds quite similar, but this samadhi is very different than the samatha here. Okay? So this samadhi actually is the state that mind is stilled. Okay? Mind is so still at that time that there is no feelings. Okay? There is no feelings, and then there is no such a concept of perceptions. Okay? So in this moment, what happens is that there is no color, there is no shapes. Okay? There is no color, there is no shapes. So that's why in whatever you've been practicing, you should be able to recognize and that how am I observing these feelings and how am I understood each feelings relating to each objects or each phenomena that arose. Now with that understanding, basically this the mind actually, rather than arising, it settles. Right? So that's why it's called calming the mind. Right? In order to attain that one, that's why what is said, what we have to practice actually, or understand it, is so the 8 jnanas, right? So 8 knowledge of the first section, for first tetra, and then the 6 knowledge of the second tetra. When we understand these both tetras in this session, this way, then the calming of the mind automatically happens. Right? And that is the moment that your mind body so settled, you do not have any feelings of your body at all. And the mind also simply resting there. Right? So calm, rest. So that's why sometimes people ask about the pain, what happens with your pain in your physical body. Actually, as you develop your samadhi, the physical pain simply disappears. The body doesn't there at all. There is no perceptions at all. There is no feelings at all. And in this case, when the mind comes to this stage of a calmness, actually what happens that even you will have this moment of no breath, no sati as well. Have you ever experienced that? Even like a no sati. Sounds crazy, isn't it? But you will come into it's like the simile that I normally think in that stage of attainment is like in a science experiment. You suck out the whole air, and then you put something in. Right? When you do not have any air in, what happens? The object, even let's say feather, will it fall or will it rise? It won't have any reaction to this feather at all. So that stage of mind is there. So still. So there is no feeling, no perception, and also even like a sati becomes no sati there. It's just stillness there. And that's why in Anapanasati, this breathing meditation is given. Awareness of the breath is given as in the background. In case you experience it, okay, return. So that the moment when you observe the breath, then again one chitta comes, one consciousness arises. Right? So that's why understanding this one chitta, actually developing a wisdom, one wisdom, right? Panya. Right? So that's why the Buddha's teaching is actually clearly saying that wisdom has to be developed. In order to develop this wisdom, so we have to understand this consciousness, true consciousness. And in order to understand this true consciousness, then we have to understand the feeling. Right? So when we understand this feeling, actually we are in the present moment. So we are basically having a sampajanya all the time. Wisdom part all the time. So with that wisdom, what happens? Whenever this mind, because we haven't left the breath, because we're coming back to the present moment, the breath is there, that moment what happens that whenever we experience this mental state, the mind arises, the consciousness, that moment then we will be able to recognize whether this mind is polluted by something or not. So the kilesas, right? Raga, dvesa, moha, like that. So there are 16 types of mind state, right? So we will be able to recognize that. In a short form, let's say a raga, right? Lust. We will be able to recognize that, okay, whether my mind is polluted or with this lustful mind. So we are able to recognize that. And these recognition of each and every stage is actually helping us to understand that this mind itself, in a reality, conditioned by this feeling and perception created. Right? And when this happens, what happens? We have this perception of a desire, want to have pleasant sensation or want to gain some form of a pleasant experiences, whether it's in this world or whether hereafter. Right? So that's why this moment of practice is actually really important. And this you can check yourself that whether your practice is improving or not in 4 ways. Number 1, checking your faith, saddha, checking your faith, that how much faith you have developed towards the Buddha, towards the Dhamma, towards the Sangha. Right? So the moment when you see the Buddha, how much genuine gratitude and a respect arises in yourself. Yeah? And then the Dhamma, how much the genuine respect and gratitude do you have. And that again you can check from even your, if you're doing chantings, you can check from there too, whether you are just reciting it or you are contemplating and practicing it. And even in the Sangha again, whenever you see the Sangha, is it coming from your heart to pay respect, pure gratitude, whether it is coming or not? So early on I was explaining about gaining faith in your practice. And now this is coming towards the objectives, objects that we are having. So you can check that one. Yeah? And then the second is that how much you are conscious about your own moral practices. This again I mentioned last week as well. So this conscious awareness and thinking of practicing of that. And the third one is giving. When you're giving, so are you giving from your heart, or you're just giving it simply to fulfill the duties? And this giving again relates further into the emotions, right? It also relates further into so-called abhayadan, right? So giving forgiveness and forgetting. The most important is the forgetting. So that also needs to check on yourself as well, whether have you developed that or not. And the last one is basically development of the wisdom, which again, obviously, in order to develop this wisdom, we have to understand the mind. So that's why these 4 things you can check in your own daily practices and see that whether how much you have developed these qualities in yourself, like paying respect or having a gratitude to the Vedana Sanya, and a sila, and giving a dana, and then the wisdom. Right? So I have spoken quite long today, so I think it's enough for now. Let's practice a meditation, and later on we can discuss on further. So spend some time collecting yourself to be here and now, and spend a few moments settling down, grounding yourself by observing the breath. Incoming breath, outgoing breath. A long breath, short breath, different breaths relating to the body, calming the body, forming of it. And even experience of some blissful moments of piti, the rapture, and sukha, the happiness. And after that, try to train yourself to learn to notice each mind that you are having. Each breath that you recognize, that's each mind is there. There is a feeling, there is a perception of this is the breath. And there is awareness, conscious awareness of it. So tonight's practice, try to notice 3 things: feeling, perception, and consciousness. Consciousness as an awareness, a feeling as things that you observe, and a recognition of it. But obviously, if you can't recognize these 3 things, and working with the breath, and gradually improving your concentration and gradually try to recognize these phenomena. An experience of this sukha is mental happiness. Oh, you have experienced it. It's like having a bath after a long walk. It's not about thinking of having a bath, but you have taken a bath. And that satisfaction, that contentment, when there is that contentment, what happens? So rather than developing the desire to be in that contentment, but recognizing that state, an ability to let it be, keeping the mind in a very equanimous stillness. And train to recognize this moment of a consciousness as like a bouncing back. It's like a flame that appears. So continue practicing for some times.